Welcome to the Echo Oscar Delta podcast, where we talk to Navy EOD techs and hear the stories that they want to share. All ideas, thoughts, and statements are those of the guest and the host of Echo Oscar Delta, and not of Navy EOD or Navy as a whole. All right, today on the Echo Oscar Delta podcast, we have Sam Brasfield. He did 36 years in the Navy, was retired as an EOD captain, and 36 years. That's a lot of time to do a lot of things. Instead of me going through all the things that he did, just going to kind of turn it over to you to do some highlights if you want from the 36 years.
Nice. Yeah. Hoo-yah, Jaron, for having me here. Honored to be here on Echo Oscar Delta. I've listened to a lot of your episodes, and I like what you're doing. So I to answer your question, I enlisted in the Navy in 1988, August of 88, right out of high school. I enlisted in the Navy. I tell people it's because my dad was a Marine and I was a very rebellious youth, and there's a lot of truth to that. But I joined the Navy to see the world. Full intentions of being in 4 years and getting out. Wasn't ready for college, but saw a lot of good things. In my first 4 years in the Navy, worked hard, made 2 deployments on the USS Forrestal, so that dates me. Wow. Forrestal was the first super carrier. I was an aviation electrician's mate, worked on S3 Vikings as a flight deck troubleshooter, final checker, and then went to shore duty, started going to college with preparations to getting out and going to college. A mentor of mine taught me into at least trying to apply for an officer program, so I applied for Enlisted commissioning program with intentions of becoming a pilot, going to college and getting the Navy to pay my college and become a pilot. Well, during my time at Auburn University, I realized my eyesight wasn't perfect and they would not let me go pilot. Back then you couldn't be a pilot if you didn't have, perfect, uncorrected vision. Okay. So I started considering other options. John Porter was at Auburn with me, another retired 06, and he was a prior 5331 or 5339, whatever the assistant tech was back then. And he's like, man, you should go EOD. Well, the only thing I knew about EOD is when I deployed on the Forrestal, I'd PT'd with him on the hangar deck. When I did have time, I didn't have much time to PT, but I did PT with them. Don't remember the names of any of those guys, and I've thought about that many years. I wish I knew who they were, but I PT with them a few times. And so I'm like, all right, let's try this. So I went down to Det, Panama City. JT Turner, most people know who that is, retired 06, twin pen. He was the OIC at Det, Panama City. He did my interview, and the guy's mentored me ever since then. I still talk to him pretty much every other week. That's awesome. Good man. But so that's how I went EOD. Back then, we did a ship tour, so I did my ship tour on a mine hunter, the MHC the Shrike. Did a tour down in Ingletucky, Texas, and 9/11 happened while I was on the Shrike, and then I left in 2002 and went to EOD school. Graduated in 2003, and from there went to Mobile Unit 2. Mobile Unit 2, I made 3 deployments. The first deployment was to Kuwait, to Ashwaba. A lot of the old timers remember that deployment, but I went and made a deployment there. I had Mark Bond, who was a senior chief back then, Tim Ballmer, Colby Ferguson, and a few divers on the team. And after that deployment, I came back and they put me on the next team headed to Iraq. Which was Mobile Unit 2, Det 2. So we called us the Double Deuce. And Tim Rutterow, Commander Rutterow at the time, was the CO. He'd also been a Double Deuce guy, so he took special interest in us. And we trained up. The whole team was an interesting group, but we had all been in EOD school, not necessarily in the same class, but right around, we all knew each other from EOD school. It was me, Cliff Sabo, Johnny Cox, John Burkhart, Devin Bryan, Dave Lawrence, and they put one post deployer, senior tech as our chief, and he was an E6, and that was Slade Scott. And we did the whole workup cycle, and about a month or so, maybe 6 weeks before we were supposed to deploy, they put a master chief on her debt. I think that says a lot about, what they had to look for. They were like, we better put some leadership on this debt. But Mikey Wool was a senior chief at group and promoted to master chief as he was coming to the mobile unit, and they had promised him a deployment. So they put him on our debt. Unfortunately, a couple weeks later, I was skydiving and had a bit of an accident and shattered my left tib fib. And I got pulled on that debt, and another LT took that deployment. Mark Yoon took that deployment from me. But Rudero really took care of me. He put me on the next team going, and I was training on crutches. After I had surgery, I was running around, doing out at AP Hill and Fort Pickett and all those places doing the training on crutches. I got put on Det 24, and with another group of solid guys and one gal, Rachel Cassidy. We had Mike Henchman was the senior chief. We had me, Matt McCord, Tommy Matney. That was my team members, and then the other team was Brian Coffey, and Jeff O'Connor.
Yeah.
Who was an E5 at the time. He was probably the most mature guy on the debt. And then we had Schneider. Carl Schneider was the other team member with Brian Coffey. But from there, we made an Iraq deployment at Baghdad. So that was November 05 through May of 06. So the peak of the IED threat in Iraq. I had a really successful, good deployment, as successful as it could be. There was over 300 IEDs that we disarmed, 6 car bombs. I loved it. It was exciting. It's kind of like jumping out of airplanes. It was a little scary every time, but it got better and better. Had a lot of close calls, but overall it was good. Came back from there, and I had graduated high school in 1988. 2000, and I got my bachelor's degree. No, I graduated high school in 88. Did I say 98? 88. Yeah. I got my bachelor's degree in 98. So 2008 was coming up. So Rudero asked me what I wanted to do next. And I said, well, sir, I'm 10-year increment kind of guy. I'd like to go get my master's degree. And he's like, okay. He's like, I don't know how that'll be on your career, but yeah, if you want to go to graduate school, go for it. So they sent me out to Naval Postgraduate School. Nice. And did a master's degree out in Monterey, which is probably the best thing the Navy ever did for me. Send me out to Monterey where it's air conditioned 24/7. And I came straight from Iraq and went out there. It's where my second son was born. So, there was some good stuff happening prior to that. And then, but I did that tour. From there, I went to SOCOM. So I did, at graduate school, I did the McRaven program. A lot of the 1140s are familiar with it, but it's they call it SOLIC. So it's, damn, I'm brain farting now. I had to tell you right there, but it's Special Operations Low Intensity Conflict. It's like a political science degree, but it was a lot of fun. National Security Affairs was the other program out there that we're sending people, but that was like really intense, writing 20, 30 page papers every couple of weeks. They put me in the SOLIC, the McRaven program, where it was like NSA for dummies or jocks, and met a lot of really good, solid folks out there. Really good network of people. Got orders from there to SOCOM. Did the counter IED. Worked in program manager for counter proliferation at SOCOM, and deployed a lot in that deployment. So I was there for right at 30 months, and had no idea how many times I've been to Iraq and Afghanistan, Philippines, Pakistan, Yemen, all these places, until I got done and I pulled out all my paper travel claims and started counting them. Yeah. And I've been to Iraq 12 times, Afghanistan 12 times, and then, like I said, Yemen, Pakistan, Philippines, and then all over the U.S. So I was doing fielding and training of counter IED stuff. So, we had the MMBJ. You guys are probably familiar. The old guys were, but we went from, when I got there, MMBJ was the soft jammer, to the concept to deployment of the EGON was fully deployed. And then the Thor, most people from where we were, the Thor 2, and all those series of jammers. But I was doing that, had a blast doing that, traveling a lot. From there, I had screened for XO. I went to dive school to be the XO. And after that, went to DC. I was supervisor of diving at NAVC 00 Charlie. Funny story about that is when I got those orders, they were like, "Hey, the best thing about this job is it's DC, but it's not the Pentagon." Well, it didn't take long. It was about a year and a half after being there. Admiral Morneau called me. He's like, "Sam, I need you to go to the Pentagon." I was like, "Who, y'all, sir? What do you need me to do?" He's like, "No, I need you to transfer to the Pentagon." I was like, "Roger that, sir." I was like, "I hadn't bought a used car in a while, but I understand the bait and switch. But hoo-yah." Most people that know Morneau, anytime he says, ask you to do something, it's hoo-yah. He's a solid man, good leader. A lot of us have huge respect for him. I definitely do. So anyway, then I went to the Pentagon and started doing budget stuff.
Yeah.
He's like, "You're the right guy for this." Like, I can barely do my own budget, but hoo-yah, I'll do it. And I learned a lot. Quite honestly,
That's awesome.
I tell people that job was a pinnacle job in my career because I say it kind of flippantly, but there's some truth to it. It's like a camping trip where you froze your ass off, starved half to death, and caught chiggers, but you look back and like, man, that was a damn good camping trip.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I learned a lot, and I used that stuff my whole rest of my career. From there, I screened for command, ended up doing a side tour on the way to command at a ROTC unit at Vanderbilt, which was also a phenomenal job, mentoring and teaching young future Naval and Marine Corps officers. I was only there for a little over a year, and then I went to dive school and was the CO, relieved Cameron Chin as the CO at dive school. And then from dive school, I went to out to 6th Fleet to CTF 68. Went out there to be Cameron's deputy and, waiting on Major Command screen, see what was going to happen with that. Got there, and one of the other 1140s that was 68.3 OIC had an unfortunate family thing where he had to pull out. And so I stepped in as an interim and ended up just taking, the guy's name's Jeff DeMarco, solid guy. He and Cameron had worked a deal with Admiral Black, 68, and said, "Hey, we can take this NATO deployment that Americans have never led, which is Standing NATO MCM Group 1 up in the Baltics and the North Sea. Been around for almost 50 years at that point, and U.S. had never led that group. We'd participated in it, but we'd never led it. Well, they did all the hard work on selling it and got the deployment, and then I stepped in and was thrown into that. I hadn't done MCM since I'd been on the MHC, right? I was never on the MCM team, but it's not rocket science. And quite honestly, what I found is I think what I didn't know probably helped me better because all the different countries do things a little different. Yeah. And I could have really nitnoyed them, but I didn't. I listened to them. If it made sense, we moved out. Did a 4-month deployment with Standing NATO MCM Group 1, deployed on a German ship. So it was pretty cool. When I joined the Navy in 1988, did I think I would be on a German ship off the coast of Normandy, countermining German bottom mines. So it was pretty cool.
That is cool.
Yeah, we had one Mobile Unit 8 MCM team with us. And I got a lot of great stories, and we could talk about those. But one that I was really happy with is the French. They're really good at EOD.
Yeah,
they're a trip to deal with, but they're really good at EOD. And I could tell you a whole story of how they proved that to me. But after they had found their 3 bottom mine, and none of the group had found any bottom mines yet. Now, it was off the coast of Normandy, and I'm telling the CO, "You got the intel, dude. You got to hook us up." He's like, "No, I don't have the intel." But there's a whole story with that. I said, "Hey, I'd like to send the Mobile Unit 8 team to countermine this." He's like, "Yep, absolutely." So Bridget Barden was the OIC at the time. She sent 2 of her youngest folks out there, and they got to countermine and bottom mine off the coast of Normandy. That was pretty cool. That is cool. So anyway, from there, I was like, man, I was at 35, almost 35 years in the Navy, and I'm like, such great leadership in our community. It's like, it's time for me to move on and do something else. So I was looking at retiring, but I was working for Admiral Black out there, and he's like, "I can't tell you not to retire from overseas, but I highly encourage you to go back to the States and retire." So I took orders. I had orders to DC, and then the last minute it changed down at NETC. Since I had done a couple of NETC jobs, XO and CO dive school, and I'd been at Vanderbilt, I knew a lot of the people down there. I kind of knew the lay of the land, and they knew me. So they were like, "Hey, the Admiral needs a EA, executive assistant. You interested in coming down here?" At first, I was like, no. But then the more I looked at it, I was like, yeah, and it would be my last year or so, we'd be close to my wife's parents. and ended up being a great time. Learned a lot there, working for Admiral Cherico, who's now the Chief of Naval Personnel. Guy who had none of that experience, came into NETC, freaking learned it, did a great job, and now he's the CMP. So, but anyway, from there I retired, and here I am.
That's awesome.
Anyway,
that's that's actually a quick snapshot for a long time. Like that's.
I told you I get it 50,000.
I like it.
Yeah,
that was perfect. Inside of that time, do you have any, one or two like most memorable experiences, whether it's things that affected you the most or just things that you remember close to heart?
Man, I tell you, Jerron, the people in our community are what stand out to me. And I could name names after names after names. And some probably shouldn't say anything about it in a public forum, but those relationships, those people are phenomenal. So I might tell a couple stories, and it's just whoever comes to mind, because there's so many that man, I love the folks in our community, guys and gals. I mentioned Rachel Cassidy. She could out PT everybody on the det. Nobody on Det 24 would argue with me on that. She's now, I think she's like an SES or something. She did like 10 years in the Navy, got out, but the Det 2, Mobile Unit 2, Det 2, even though I didn't deploy with those guys, they're some of the most memorable folks, because it was a cast of characters, right? Cliff Sabo alone is a cast of character, right? And Slade Scott, you don't know him, but you've heard of him. He is a hoot. And so memories from that det, just from the workups and my experience with them, man, I got so many stories. I mentioned to you the Mobile Unit 2, Det 2, beer in the cages story. I'm gonna try to keep it short, but I do want to tell it. I think it would. There'll be some people that will know something about this, but they might not know the story. So I'm gonna try to keep it as concise as possible. But first of all, when I deployed with Det 14 to Kuwait, Rotaro took over from Jerry O'Regan while I was on deployment. Something happened around that time. I think we had a couple people get DUIs leaving the command. So Rotaro sent out an email to everybody, said, no alcohol at the mobile unit. If you want alcohol, you need to have a request chit for like a retirement or a re-enlistment or whatever, and I may approve it. So I get back, they put me on Det 2, and every week the guys will be like, hey, sir, when you going to put in a request chit for us to drink some beers in the cages? Like, man, what have you guys done yet? We haven't done anything yet. Chill. Well, one day I come in and we're getting ready to go dive. They're loading up the truck, and I'm like, I got to go send out some emails. I'm knocking out some emails. The prior week, we were the only cage that didn't have a refrigerator at the time. I think Mobile Unit 2 still has the cages, right?
Yes, yeah.
And we're the only cage that didn't have a refrigerator. And we've been bugging the material officer. She finally bought us one. We'd had a ribbon cutting. It was a big deal, right? So we had this nice refrigerator right next to my desk. I'm knocking out some emails. Well, in walks Commander Rotaro. Attention on deck. He's like, oh, keep seat, keep seat, keep seat. So I sit down, and I'm like, roger that, sir. He walks up, and he's like, man, nice refrigerator. Where did you get this? And I said, well, the material officer finally bought us one. We're the only one. He's like, oh, this is nice, man. He opens it up, and there's a 6-pack of beer in the refrigerator. He's like, whose beer is this? And I'm like, I don't know. And I look over at Slade, who's my chief, right? Slade, whose beer is that? Slade's like, oh, that's for the rats, sir. I don't know if they still call the Readiness Assist training team the rats.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, where are the rats going to drink it? He's like, I'll talk to you later, LT. I'm like, hoo-yah, sir. And he leaves, right? And I'm like, Slade, what's up, dude? I told you, man, if you wanted beer, we'd freaking do it the right way. He's like, I know, sir. I know. I'm like, all right. 5 minutes pass, phone rings, it's ops. Sam, get up to the XO's office. Hoo-yah. So I run up, I go in. DeGuardo's the XO, by the way. Walk in there. XO, Lieutenant Brasfield reporting as requested. Where's your chief? I was like, sir, I don't have a chief. He's like, well, your senior enlisted, where is he? I was like, he's down in the cage. Go get him. Hoo-yah, sir. I go down there and get him. Slade, he wants to talk to both of us. Okay, we walk up there. We stand up there, we get our ass chewed, and I'm telling you, I've never had my ass chewed like that in the Navy. That's the only ass chewing I've had like that in the Navy. You're gonna inspect all the cages for beer. You're gonna do training on the CO's policy on alcohol in the cages. Blah blah blah. Yes, sir. Hoo-yah, 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 sir. So we leave and we walk down to the cage, and Slade says, "Hey, sir, check this out. April Fools, we got your ass. We got your ass." I'm like, "What are you talking about?" He's like, "It's April 1st." And I'm like, "Yeah, and Rhetorow's in on it. But guess what? Ops and XO, they're not in on it." I'm like, "Are you kidding me?" He's like, No. It was awesome, dude. He got us, right?" I was like, "Oh, that's messed up, dude." So I'm like, dude, we're getting ready to dive. And I'm like, "Oh, man, I got to like close the loop on this or something, or do I?" Well, the movie Men in Black had just come out. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
And Burger King was giving out these little neuralizers, little flashlights.
Yeah.
Well, the guys had one on my desk, and I'm like, "Ooh, I got an idea." And I'm like, "Slade, I got an idea." So I grabbed the neuralizer, thinking I was going to walk up to the XO's office and say, and Rhetorow's office is right here, XO's office is right here. I was just going to say, "Hey, XO, you forgot everything that happened today. It's not real," and get Rhetorow to like confirm it, right? Well, I leave the cages, and here comes Rhetorow, Digger, and Dan Malatesta was the ops. I don't know if you know Dan. They're walking down the hallway, and I'm like, "Hey, Skipper, you got a minute?" And both XO and ops are looking at me like, "You little freaking lieutenant, you just got your ass chewed and you're calling the skipper?" And Rhetorow, he's like, "Yo," he's from Philly. Yo, what you got?" And I'm like, so we go in the head, the officer's head right there on the right. And I'm like, "Hey, I know there's a joke. That was funny, but can I get XO and ops?" He's like, Yeah. What you gonna do?" I was like, "I got this thing. I'm gonna flash it in their face and say, 'You've forgotten everything that happened today.'" He's like, Yeah. I like it. So the funny thing is, I walk out there and I flash it in Digger's face and say, "You're gonna forget everything that happened." And he started laughing. He got it right off the bat. I think to this day, Dan Malatesta didn't get the joke. He still holds it over my head. But so anyway, for years, I thought about how am I going to get Rhetorow back? And I did a job in the Pentagon. I mentioned doing the bullpen, doing the budget, and after my soup dive job. And Rhetorow was the resource sponsor. Like, I was dealing with him all the time, and I was always thinking of ways to get him back, and I could never think of anything that was appropriate or wouldn't backfire. I thought about moving money and like freaking messing with him, right? And so he was going to retire at 40 years. He was having a retirement down here in Norfolk, and he asked for side boys for his retirement. I was like, "Hell yeah, I'll do anything for Rhetorow. I'll put on my blues for you." So I came down here to be one of his side boys in his retirement. And during his retirement, he got up on the stage and he talked about how, "I was always meant to be in the Navy. I mean, my name's Rhetorow, and I was a chief," and blah, 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 giving his whole spiel, right? And then he says, "And then last night, to top it off, we're all standing in the Navy Lodge, and the fire alarm goes off. And like, we have to all go outside. We're out. It's like, 30 degrees outside. We're in our car. We're mustering over cell phones." And he's like, typical Navy day, right? Where my mind starts turning. I'm like, I think I can use this. I'm like, I'm going to use this. Right? So the retirement's over. He and Tina get up to go and meet people as they leave, right? He's going to greet people after his retirement. I'm one of the first ones. I walk up and I'm like, "Skipper, congratulations." He's like, "I love you, man." He's like, yeah. I said, "You remember the beer in the cages story?" He's like, yeah, that was a funny. I was like, "What'd you think about that fire alarm?" He went, his face turned red. He looked at Tina. He said, "Sam pulled the fire alarm." I was like, "I never said I pulled the fire alarm. I just asked you what you thought about the fire alarm." So he actually believed in the moment that I pulled the fire alarm to get him back. But I didn't, awesome. Right? Which was awesome. Anyway, that's a memorable story from Mobiant time. I know it's not disarming IEDs in Iraq, but like, that's back to the people, right? Yeah. A skipper another thing about Rhetorow is like, when I'm doing my FEP, he and Sabo are wrestling. And freaking, he's putting Sabo in the figure 4 on the deck, right? So I'm like, he's beating up one of my E5s, right? I mean, it's those kind of people that I really love and appreciate. So
yeah, absolutely. That's inside of whether it's the war stories or the extracurricular, it's always the people that actually make the story. Like,
that's right.
The same thing can happen, but if you don't have the people
that's right.
that we're with,
sure,
that end up joining,
absolutely,
yeah. That's awesome.
Yep.
Well, I know I've talked to some people and told them like why reached out to you eventually. So I've known your name for quite a while. I think a lot of people know your name, and stories and whatnot, right? But then I ended up seeing on Facebook that you were going to do the AT when you retired.
Yeah.
Because you're very recently retired, actually, now.
That's
so
right.
It's what, almost 7 months now?
Yeah, in March. I retired the end of March.
Okay.
So I'm not very good with public math, but whatever that is.
Yeah, we won't. We'll just pretend. We'll move on. But yeah, it's recently, and so I noticed that on like I said on Facebook that you were going to be doing the AT, and that it was with an organization, and that piqued my interest because one like we were talking about before this. I've read a bunch of books on people through hiking the AT. Even before I came in, I've watched stuff on it. That kind of stuff always has interested me. So when I saw you doing that, I was like, man, this, I've heard your name a bunch in the EOD realm, right? Yeah. And a bunch of stories that went on with that, and maybe another time. But the interesting, one of the most interesting parts that I think of the discussions that we've had is why you did the AT trail after. Yeah. And so if you wouldn't mind talking about the organization that you went through to set it up, and then just when you started thinking about doing that and why.
Yeah, exactly, man. So I grew up in Alabama, pretty rough upbringing, single mom. But I had a few men in my life that took care of me, like mentored me and so forth. And there was this one old World War II vet named Oscar McClam. He had a kid older than us. And I was in Boy Scouts at the time. I ended up, one of my biggest regrets in life is I made it all the way almost to Eagle Scout, didn't do my Eagle project because I went down the beaten path. But Oscar McClam took an interest in me and another hoodlum in my town named Richie Pendergrass. And he asked us if we wanted to do this, these workup hikes and then do the Appalachian Trail in the summer. And we're like, sure, let's do it. So my buddy Richie and I did it, I think 3 summers. We ended up doing almost 200 miles, 70 miles, 65 and 70 miles over 3 summers. We do these little workup hikes. And I heard about people, I thought it was huge that I'd done 70 miles of the Appalachian Trail when I was in high school. I was like, because it took us 5 or 6 days, and then we would go whitewater rafting afterwards. It was like a big deal, right, to me in my brain back then. But I'd hear about people that had hiked the whole way, 2,200 miles of the Appalachian Trail. I was like, man, that is unbelievable. So it was always in my brain. And then I went off in the Navy, never had the opportunity to do it really, because of timing. Mm-hmm. And so I thought about it for many years. And my wife's heard me talk about it. We've been married 27 years, just celebrated 27th anniversary. And she's heard me talk about it for that long or longer, wanting to do it at some point when I retire. And we were living in Europe, and I was doing some hiking and stuff. She said, well, when you retire, why don't you do the through hike of the Appalachian Trail? I was like, well, you realize that could take 6 months. And she said, yeah, but but you've always wanted to do it. And she's very supportive, and I could tell you all about that. I think, my wife is phenomenal, has supported me in a lot of stuff that most wives are like, why do you support him in doing that? So when I came back to retire, when I came back to NETSI and was doing that job, doing all my retirement preps, whenever I'd talk about job opportunities and stuff, she'd be like, how does that fit into your retirement plan? And I was like, your hiking the Appalachian Trail plan. And I'd be like, yeah, I don't know if it does. And she kind of held me accountable. Like, you say you want to do this, it's an opportunity, we can do it. We don't have any debt. It's not like we're living in an apartment. It's not like we could do it, right? Yeah. It would just put things on hold for a while. So as Ren says, my wife is Ren, like the bird, she says, Facebook knows what you're thinking. And I think there's some truth there. I think there's some algorithms that know what you listen. Yeah. But we've been talking about it, and I pull up Facebook, and there's this Warrior Expeditions, and this was March a year ago. And the group that year, so 2024, was starting their hike of the Appalachian Trail. I was like, what is this? So I emailed them, and they were like, yeah, it's for combat vets. There's an application process. We start it, this time of year. It was in end of August. You apply, and then it goes through a process. And I was like, all right. So I put a little tickler on my thing, and they sent me an email when it was time, and I applied for it. And so Warrior Expeditions is the name of the organization. It's a nonprofit for combat vets. I really believe there's tons of and you don't have to be retired. You can just be transitioned, like you did 10 years, 5 years, whatever, and got out. Currently, there is a requirement you have to be a combat vet, so combat action ribbon or whatever, whatever the service designates as combat. And then I was the only Navy guy in the group, so I applied. Christmas Day, we find out I got picked up.
That's cool.
They send you an email, say, hey, you've been selected. Reply to this email if you're still interested in doing it. We'll send you more information. And then it's a whole process. They you start doing video teleconferences with the group. You kind of meet the cohort you're gonna hike with. They chose 20 people this last year. I don't know what it will be next year and future years, but this year they chose 20 people for the Appalachian Trail. It's called Warrior Expeditions because originally when it started, Sean Gobin is the founder, Marine, got out of the Marine Corps, and 14 years ago through hiked the Appalachian Trail and saw the value in it. He ended up going to graduate school from there and said, hey man, I should start a nonprofit for vets for this. Did it for combat vets. But originally it was called, he named it his Warrior Hikes because it was just the Appalachian Trail. He also added the PCT and the CDT for a few years, the Pacific Crest Trail and the Continental Divide Trail. And then he saw value in other stuff because there's some people that can't hike the trail, but there's value in it. So he changed it to Warrior Expeditions. I think it's been about 5 years. And now he does not just the Appalachian Trail, but he does a bike across America and a canoe down the Mississippi River. And but for the AT, he said there was 400 people that applied that year, and he picked 20. So my cohort, you're only supposed to put 10 people in a group on the Appalachian Trail at a time.
Okay.
That's one written rule they have. There might be 100 people that start, but it's supposed to only be 10 people in a group.
Gotcha.
So he split it up, and we ended up having 9 in our group. One guy wasn't able to go at the last minute because of medical reasons, but we had 9 in our group, and then a week later, another group of 10 started. So. Okay. Of those 19 Warrior Expeditions, there's 13 still on the so I think I was the 5th to finish, and then there's 8 more that are on the trail that are summiting in the next few days. Nice. But I really, like I told you, Duran, I want to talk about this program because I think it's a phenomenal transition program for vets. Yeah. I really believe, the Navy, the Marines, the Army, they spend all this time ramping us up to join the military, as I say, institutionalizing us, right?
It is. From
boot camp, OCS, whatever it is, you get all this time, and you get institutionalized, and it's great. It's good, right? We have some flaws to it, but it's a good thing. But when we leave the service, as you can see, I've let my hair grow. One of my mottos on this trail is no shave, no haircut, and no dope. There's a lot of dope on the trail, but I'm not into that. Yeah. I don't need to add that to my whatever. I'm not judging anybody that does like to smoke some pot or whatever, but I didn't want to participate in that. So that was one of my mottos, and early on there was a lot of it. But anyway, so there's no expectation of that cohort to stay together except for the first 4 days. The first 4 days, they want you to stay together as a group. They had 2 vets from the previous year come out and kind of mentor us.
Okay.
So you get issued all your equipment. I already mentioned we do the little video teleconferences up to that Zoom calls where we get to meet each other. We talk about the gear that we're going to get, talk about, all the program. And then we do like a day or 2 of where Sean, man, he's phenomenal. Marines, they're like concise and to the point, tells you everything you need to know, but not more than you need to know about everything from water filters to your backpack to your tent, right? And everything you need is included. Yeah. To include, they will buy shoes of your choice, but they buy you 1 pair a month. They'll pay for up to $200 a pair a month. And then they give you a stipend for food, $300. And quite honestly, on a hiker diet, you could just spend $300. It would cover your food.
Yeah.
You know, people say, what do you eat on the trail? My answer to that is like, take a 12-year-old boy into the freaking grocery store and say, hey, go get whatever you want to eat. Whatever he comes out with, that's basically what people eat on the trail. And I've always been somewhat healthy eater, so that was kind of difficult for me. But it is about calories. You got to get the calories in, so there's some value in that. Honey buns and Snickers and all that stuff goes a long way. And then the other big advantage is they have this network of people that he's accumulated through the years. 14 years he's been doing this program. And they call them community supporters, and they're volunteers. And we even have a lady that's employed by Warrior Expeditions that manages it, and she's kind of like your go-through, but you reach out, has a spreadsheet that she updates regularly, and you're looking at, all right, I'm almost at the 50-mile mark. Who are the community supporters in this area? And you reach out via text. You say, hey, I'm coming into the area. In the spreadsheet says what they'll provide: transportation, laundry, homestay, meals, resupply, that kind of stuff, or just transportation, or there are a number of hostels and stuff that provide like 1 night free, 1 meal free, and that kind of stuff. Some really, really cool places that support it. I mean, there was one place they gave us a $100 gift card. Wow. They're like, homestay, transportation, wash your clothes, and by the way, here's a $100 gift card. You're like, what's this for? And they're like, well, our VFW wants to contribute, and they want to give you all a $100 gift card.
That's awesome.
I mean, it's awesome. Really supported via VFW and American Legion all along the way. Some of these people have no ties to the military.
Really?
I had this old hippie guy in Vermont, really neat guy. Now, he was a thru hiker. He had thru hiked the Appalachian Trail. His son had as well, but has no ties to the military. But man, he was just phenomenal and knew everything about the trail.
Yeah.
So some people maybe have kids in the military. Some are prior service. A lot of them are hikers, though. That's kind of how they find out about it, I think. But that was the biggest benefit. So expectation to hike together for a few days, because there's different reasons for that. But probably the biggest reason is, us, we would go out and hike 20-mile days right off the bat. Right. And Georgia, North Carolina, and Tennessee are really, really rugged. Yeah. You blow your load if you did that.
Really?
Right? Yeah, even studs, they would hurt themselves. So he kind of throttles us back, 10 to 14 mile days first few days, and then they teach you. We use this app that's just big on the trail. Probably 95% of the people on the trail are using Far Out, which is a really good app for the Appalachian Trail. Okay. most people are familiar with All Trails and those different apps, but right. Far Out is phenomenal for the Appalachian Trail. They sponsor us. It's like a $100 app with all the maps for the Appalachian Trail. They sponsored us. So you learn how to use it in this group. So our group, our cohort, once again, after 4 days, no expectation to hike together, but we stayed together for like 700 miles.
Wow.
And then we had this one warrant officer, CW5 pilot, really good dude, Jody. He was the second to the oldest guy in our group. And he had a deadline. He needed to be back with his family in early August. So he's like, man, I got to move out. So he broke from the pack early on. And then we had some people that things came up, that kind of stuff. So we started spreading out. Yeah. There were a few guys that I hiked with a lot of the way. And really, bonded with them, which there's a lot of value in that. So on the trail, regular Appalachian Trail thru hikers, they develop these, they call them tramilies, right? Trail families. You'll hear this term, right? But they meet on the trail. They get along, they're hiking about the same pace, the same place, and they start hanging out together, and there'll be groups of 10 that are like tramilies, right? Well, the cool thing about us is we started out as tramilies. Right off the bat, we already knew each other from the VTCs, the training together. We're somewhat like-minded, although I was the only Navy guy. Caught a little hell, but I liked it, right? I gave it probably better than I took it, that's for sure. But you just bond with those guys. Yeah. And quite honestly, there was 2 guys in my group who happened to be the youngest guys, both infantry guys. One was like armored cavalry type, and the other was an infantry guy. And they were the youngest. I had the least in common with them, but dude, I stayed back with them the first 4 days just to kind of get to know them. And they're some of the most solid dudes. I gave the young dude, his name's Keegan, I gave him his trail name, Young Guns.
Yeah.
He named me. He was coming up with all sorts of ridiculous stuff, call me Silver Fox and stuff because of my hair. Yeah. And then one morning he woke up and he said, "Hi ho, Silver, away!" And I'm like, I like it. That's from the Lone Ranger.
Yeah.
A lot of the young folks don't know that. I tell them, yeah, I'm hi ho. The young folks be like, oh, like hi ho, off to work we go. It's like, nah, dude. Like that would infer I'm hiking with a bunch of dwarves, right? You know, like, I'm not gonna call my army buddies dwarves, right? So anyway, Keegan, Young Guns, and I became really close. Ricky Wagner, he was a handful. I named him Dick Wags. So Dick Wags was a character. But we just and I'm friends with all those guys, even though some of them only hike 600-700 miles with us, and then we all split up.
Yeah.
Probably the closest I got to someone is a retired field artillery guy, Dave Freeman. His trail name was Sherpa. Phenomenal guy. Unbelievable personality. Interviewed everybody on the trail. Like, everybody knew who Sherpa. If you said you were with Warrior Expeditions, they'd be like, "Oh, do you know Sherpa?" I was like, "Yeah, of course I know Sherpa," right? So anyway, long-winded. That answer most of the.
No, yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I'm glad you. One of the questions I was going to ask is, how did you get your trail name and what was it? So that's pretty cool. That's one of the things that I think is really interesting about the AT Trail is, through hikers, at some point you get a trail name, and then it's crazy to me because I remember reading books and seemingly random people somewhere hundreds of miles on that a guy, the person writing, had never talked to before is like, "Oh, are you?" and then says a trail name.
Yeah.
And they're like, "Yeah, this other person came by."
That's right.
That's kind of a cool, like, just. I don't know if the Pacific Crest Trail and those ones do the same thing, but that's kind of a cool thing that comes out of it.
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know. I don't think it's only the Appalachian Trail. I could be wrong, because I met some through hikers that had done the PCT. Actually, I hiked with a lady for a while there. Her trail name was Happy Endings. I never got the story behind that one, but I was very interested. I can imagine. She was an older lady, and I was always like, But she was doing, the AT was the last one for her to get. They call it the Triple Crown if you've done PCT, CDT, and the AT. And I never, I'm pretty sure like PCT and other also do trail names, but I don't know that for a fact. I don't know. So yeah.
No, that's cool. One of the things we had talked about with doing the AT Trail and doing it when you did it is, and it's not respective to having done 36 years, even doing, 6, 8, 10 years, pick any number. You do get indoctrinated into the military, and it is for good purpose, right? You want people to all come around one common goal, which is being ready to fight a war for our country.
Right.
But when you get indoctrinated into that, it is very different on the outside. I had, I was 23 when I came in, so I had jobs before, so I kind of went the other way, where like I knew what civilian life was, and then you come into the military, and turns out this suited me a lot better. But but it's different. And having something that is your basically sole focus, where you think about the time before, but you're not living in that. You're living in the now to kind of separate what you did and then what you're gonna do.
That's right.
Is that, I guess, actually, how did that process go for you while you were on the trail?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So the way I look at it is, the Navy will always be part of who I am. I'll probably still use some acronyms, and I'll probably, I still think through that lens that I've learned, and it's not a bad thing. However, as divers, I think you can relate with this. Most people that are divers related, like, when you decompress, you're not getting all the nitrogen out of your system. You're getting the concentration of nitrogen out of your system. And the way I looked at it is, this trail, I grew my hair, I grew my beard, I put an earring back in that I had in high school. My wife's not too happy about that, but this silver loop, it kind of went with hi-ho silver away. And the hole was still there, believe it or not. Somebody was like, "Hey, will this earring fit?" I'll put it in there, and went right in. I'm like, "Yeah." Ren's still trying to get me to take it out, which he'll probably be gone. As soon as she stops asking me to take it out, I'll take it out.
Yeah.
But the concentration of the Navy, I had to just let it go. And I'll tell you, one of the hardest things was phones, man.
Yeah.
Like, for at least 2 decades, I've been tied to 2 phones, my personal phone and my work phone, and 24/7 in a lot of jobs. And for like 4 to 6 weeks, a good month and a half, I'd say 6 weeks, I didn't use my phone other than Fire Out app and checking in with my wife. Every night I let her know, hey, I'm at campsite, I'm safe.
Yeah.
I'm fortunate she was very supportive of that. There are other guys on the trail with me that were having a hard time because, life things are going on at home. We're at a point where, both my boys, one's gone off to college, one's already finished college. My wife's pretty much got things. There were issues, but fortunately for 6 weeks I was able to pretty much disconnect.
Yeah.
I didn't have to. I had like 2,500 emails when most of it's trash, but like I didn't look at that stuff, dude.
Yeah.
I got a couple phone calls like, hey man, can you do this? I'm like, whatever, but a lot of times I didn't answer stuff because on the trail you didn't have a signal.
Right.
Now I had a Garmin inReach. Ren wanted me to get that because I could send her text. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure, near future we're all going to be able to send satellite text.
Yeah.
If not now.
Yeah, I just found, actually, speaking of satellite text, I was just out in Crane, Indiana, and we were out doing a RAV with the team out there in the middle of nowhere, no signal, and a thing popped up on my phone. It said, do you want to try to send this text via satellite?
Yeah.
And I was like, what? And I followed the thing, and sure enough.
Yeah, do you have T-Mobile?
Yeah, T-Mobile.
Yeah.
Crazy. But
yeah, that's right. And I think T-Mobile right now is the only one. I've tried it on my AT&T, but with Garmin inReach, it's easy.
Yeah.
Right? But all that to say, I disconnected from the phone. Like, I got it. We're 24/7, but like, I don't need to be 24/7 right now. It gave me a lot of time to think. I have a few irons in the fire for jobs, and they're all related with my background, clearance and background and stuff. And I'm still working. I was really excited and happy and pleased that when I was going through the training, because I did the Honor Foundation, which is a phenomenal program. But everybody I told that, like, hey, I'm retiring in March, but I'm not available until fall of 25. Everybody was supportive. Like, most people were like, dude, that's awesome. I wish I would have done that.
Yeah.
Actually, I don't know if anybody that told me, oh, why are you doing that? Everybody was like really supportive. So I haven't been working what's my next job, although I've been thinking a lot about it. And it's in one thing they push in the Honor Foundation, which is so true. After you do 20 plus years in the Navy or the military, whatever you do next, you don't need to focus on what it's going to be or even how well you're going to do it, because we're all going to do well at whatever we do. But it's why. Because if you can figure out why you're doing it, finding your next career and something that drives you, the how you do it's going to be great. It doesn't matter what. I even talked to people at Navy Federal Credit Union for a job, and I was like, I'd never worked for a bank. But comes to find out, they have a really good culture.
Yeah. And
I've been talking to some people. I don't know that I'll do that, but the point is like, I got to find a job where, they're pulling jokes like Tim Rutterow. Like, maybe I'll do it, right? So, and yet they're professional, and they want to make each other better every day. All the things. One thing I like about EOD techs and EOD officers is like, we're critical of each other.
Yeah.
But in a good way. It's like base jumpers, dude. They're the most critical bunch. People think base jumpers are like freaking crazy. They're like, have a death wish or whatever. No. They're the most, every now and then there's ones or twos, right? But they're freaking critical. They want you to live. They're like, hey, why do you do it that way? Like, hey, have you tried this? Like, so all that to say, I've really given it a lot of thought on what's going to drive me, what I want to do next. Yeah. And I'm not fully decided. I have some ideas. I have some things I'm working in the background. But I believe whatever it is that I do will be something that will, if you, I heard a saying one time, if your why doesn't make you cry, it's probably not the right why.
Yeah.
Like if it's not passionate about it. I will be honest, I have a problem. Like I hear all of the young kids saying, oh, I got to find my why. Sometimes your why is just showing up and doing the best job you can, learning your job. Sometimes that's your why.
Yeah.
But when you're retired, it doesn't mean you can't do something that is not necessarily your why to make some money, but you really need to find something that makes you tick, and you're going to do better, and you're going to benefit the organization. So I've given that. So to answer your question, I've used the trail a lot to think about it. I don't know if you've read the book Comfort Crisis, but Michael Easter, I think, is the author. But he talks a lot about this day and age because very rarely do we get bored.
Right.
If we're sitting waiting, we're like looking at memes, or we're texting, or we're reading an article, or listening to podcasts. Very rarely do we get bored. Where in times past, boredom creates creativity.
Yes.
Because you think a lot. So back to the 6 weeks without a phone, I didn't listen to podcasts. I didn't listen to music, dude. I'd read that book, and I was like, I wanted to, like, literally just think.
Yeah.
And I did so much thinking. And you know, when I say I hiked with these dudes for like 700 miles, we might all start the same campsite with the goal of being at, you know, whatever the campsite is 15, 20 miles later. But you don't typically, I mean, you might hike with some people during the day, but you spread out.
Yeah.
You know, you stop and take a piss and they're gone, and you spread out. So you have a lot of time by yourself. And some guys fill the time with podcasts and audiobooks, and I did some towards the end. But early on, I just thought and just you know, I prayed a lot, dude. Like, you know, people that I'm just thinking about, people that come to mind, I just start praying for them, you know.
Awesome,
and you just so it really did good. And back to the decompression bit, I don't think it's something we want to do or should or think we want to do. I think it's something we need to do. I don't necessarily think everybody needs to go through hike the Appalachian Trail. Some people are like, dude, you're an idiot. Like, why would you walk for 6 months, right? You know, like,
yeah.
And that's fine. But whatever makes you tick. Maybe it's painting. Maybe it's, whatever. Canoeing, whatever it is. And I think, and there's a lot of programs, I'm finding there's a lot more programs out there than we realize.
Right.
And as I told you, I wanted to make sure people knew, all the EOD community knows about Warrior Expeditions. WarriorExpeditions.org. Look it up, dude. Apply. You think you won't get picked up? I mean, a lot of us were sitting around the first weekend. We were like, why did they pick us over other? If there was really 400 people that applied.
Yeah.
And you know, you go through that. I've had people tell me, like, for other programs like Home Base, which is a phenomenal program for EOD techs and stuff, to go and get fully checked out and stuff. Well, I don't need it as much as this other guy. Well, that might be true, but you still need it.
Yeah, right.
You don't say, I'm not going to go to the gym because I'm not as fat as that other guy.
Right.
Right? And I'm not being flippant calling someone that's having a harder time fatter. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is, like, you base it off of, like, you want to be better every day. And I think there's tons of programs out there, but Warrior Expeditions is a phenomenal one. And I would encourage anybody that's got any questions about it, hit me up. But the staff, there's 4 people on staff. Sean Gobin is the founder. Fully engaged, man. He came and met us on the trail a few times.
That's cool.
Brought us trail magic. Just an awesome guy. So.
Nice. There's a couple things that he had said that I want to kind of point in on. One of them is the why for what's next, and it's interesting. I was just watching a thing, and it was, I can't remember the dude's name, but one of the dudes that's on Shark Tank, and he was saying that a lot of the military guys that he hires, or he has seen hires that do sales, he's like, they're not that good. And the reason why is interesting, right? Initially, I'm like, screw this guy, you know? Because, what does he know?
Yeah, we can sell anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But what he brought up was the why. He's like, they got out of something, whether it was 6 years, 20 years, 40 years, right? Where they knew the why, and they bought into that why.
That's right.
And now they're selling, you know, pots, pans, whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
And they're like, it's just a job for them. They don't really care. Like, there's no life or death with it, and there's no like personal satisfaction with it. And that's interesting, because there are obviously some salesmen that really are invested in the product, and they do very well, especially the military side. And he kind of went on to say that, right, to not disparage us all. But but I thought it was really interesting, and it brings up when you mentioned like the why, it does make a big difference. And I think as a young kid, just like you said, I had several jobs before I came in the military, and I was a mechanic for a while, and I found out pretty quick that I really liked working on my car, hated working on other people's cars.
Right.
But I needed to pay bills. So like my why was pay bills, right?
Right.
And eventually I moved on and I started in college, and then eventually I joined the military, and turns out that was a really good why for me. But But yeah, I think at different stages in life, you're absolutely right. And I'm already thinking a lot because of seeing you getting ready for the AT and then seeing your updates on it.
Yeah.
Like I don't think I'm going to be able to do the AT, but I'm already thinking about what is going to be my version of the AT, because I know, and my wife already told me, she's like, you're going to need something in between when you're done with the military and whatever you do next.
Yep.
And my wife knows me pretty good.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
But and then the other thing was a brain fart right now, but
welcome to my world.
Oh man, it was I can't remember. It will come back.
It'll come back. That's right.
But when so you'd mentioned it deals with not using the phone, boredom, and anxiety. It's interesting that you brought up the boredom side, because I've actually noticed that in the last 5-6 months there's been some other things going on, but I've been having like anxiety that I've never had before, and it's like I've been able to push through it, but there's times where like it's legit. It's to the point where I now feel bad, just like when I was a young kid and I had not been fat yet, and I was like, how does anybody get fat?
Right.
And then I get fat and I'm like, okay.
Yeah. That's right.
God's paying me back for not having some grace, right?
That's right. That's right.
Same thing with the anxiety. I was like, bro, just put your head down and do it.
Yeah, that's right.
And then I realized, and what I've noticed actually, some of it is just sitting there on the phone and not having that boredom. And talking with Asako, the psych that I see at Strike.
Right.
One of the things she had said is, and when she said it, I was like, this is so obvious. I know how much that helped me in the past, but she's like, you need to get back to doing at least 30 minutes, 3 times a day, cardio with no music, no whatever, just your time to think. And I was like, okay, I'll do that, and like moving on, the next couple of days I started thinking about it, and I was like, man, I remember back when I was actually a runner, and like liked it and did good at it, and my body didn't hate me. But I remember running, and I never used music.
Right.
And even when I joined the military, man, I had some of the best conversations with myself playing my chief that did me wrong.
Yeah.
And, I worked through that issue, and I came back, and I was like, God, now I don't have to have that conversation where my chief's going to chew me out,
Yeah.
But having that boredom, like, it allows you to like end up being better on the other side.
That's right.
Even if it's just mentally.
Yep. Yep. I mean, there's some meditation to hiking and running, same repetitive behavior. Mm-hmm. Meditation, they teach you breathing exercises. All it is repetitive behavior.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of science and value in breathing and getting oxygen in your system, but what I'm saying is like just doing something where your mind is only focused on that in the moment, like it's all you're thinking about. And I think we've gotten better. We learn that stuff, and I think a lot of people learn it, but until you do it, and the other thing is consistency is the key. If you hike every day for months on end, it is meditative, and you're like, wow. You just feel better. Like you wake up. I mean, I'll tell you, dude, I'll be honest with you. Appalachian Trail was the hardest thing I've ever done.
Yeah.
It really was. There was times, like I did post when I was feeling, there was a few that I was struggling, but most of them was when I was in a good mood.
Yeah.
I'd see people on the trail like, how you doing? I'd be like, I only said this when I was in a good space, but I was in good space a lot, right? But I would say, if I was doing any better, I couldn't stand it, right? But then that would make me feel even better, right? there's just some meditation to that, just over and over positive thoughts, and that showed a lot of value, right? So I think that to your point.
Yeah. So speaking of the harder times, so I think a lot of things that are long. There's the, hey, I've got a lot of adrenaline, I'm motivated. The beginning portion is like,
right,
all right, good to go. I'm healthy, everything's great. And then there's like a middle portion where it can get, the repetitiveness can sometimes get to you. And then the end, you're like, okay, I see the tunnel. This one's not just long, but it's like really long.
Yeah.
Did you go through phases kind of like that?
Oh yeah, absolutely, dude. Yeah, I had some difficult times, dude, but I had some phenomenal. But I always maintained, I actually never really thought I wouldn't make it. I mean, things can happen.
Yeah.
Could have had a death in the family. I could have broke my leg. But other than that, there was never an option to not finish in my mind, right? But I did have some very difficult times. Like early on in Virginia, I caught norovirus, which is a stomach virus. And a lot of people were getting it in the trail. Like there are signs up everywhere, don't sleep in the shelters, don't share food, norovirus is rampant. And there was like, I'd say probably 80% of the people on the trail caught norovirus. Wow. And it's like in a bubble, right? Because that's where all the germs are, right? People get sick, they throw up, they shit on the trail, and it just spreads. And it was this year, it changes, they say, every year, but it was in Southern Virginia. And I was going to do, they call it the Triple Crown. So it's Dragon's Tooth, McAfee Knob, and Tinker Cliffs. It's these three really monumental hikes in Southern Virginia. If you do it all together, it's about 20 miles. And it's some pretty rugged terrain. It's to do a 20-mile hike. It's a good one. But by that time in hiking, you're in good shape. Yeah. Most thru hikers it's not a big deal to do it. So I'd planned to do it. Got up, did Dragon's Tooth in the morning, was headed to McAfee Knob, got to McAfee Knob, and later on that day, and once again, this is around the time that people were getting norovirus. Everybody was talking about norovirus, and I was by myself. I'd left the group. I was hiking by myself. I was not staying in shelters. I never hardly slept in shelters, but I was staying away from them. And I did McAfee Knob, and that afternoon, I was like just tired. I was like, man, it ain't that big of a deal to do all three in one day. So I found a campsite, pitched a tent. Well, I woke up at 12:30 at night, fever and chills, having to take a dump, and I'm like, I'm not feeling good. And I remember hearing the day before somebody talk about we were going to be getting rain showers the next day. So I pulled out my phone, and I was able to get a small signal and pull up the radar, and I saw this squall line coming, and it said it was going to be hitting around 10:30 in the morning. I'm like, and this is like midnight. I'm like, dude, I'm going to pack up my stuff and just go. So I woke up, I was like, because I'm not feeling good. I need to be at a hotel or something. Daleville was the next town. It was like 17 miles away. And so I packed everything up, under headlamp, started hiking. But it was like, I'd walk a half a mile and sit down.
Yeah.
I just had no energy.
Exhausted.
And I'm like, I just got to go one more half mile. I got to go one more mile, one more half mile. And in my mind, I was just like, that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to get one more half mile. Like, I wasn't looking at, like, I knew I needed to get to Daleville, but I was just taking it, like, I need to go as far as I can. There were a couple times I sat down and I was about to pass out, and I was like, man, I can't pass out here. Like, I got it, especially with the rain coming, I got to get up and go. And I was able to call my wife and say, hey, I waited till after 8 or so in the morning, and I said, hey, I'm not feeling well. Find me a hotel in Daleville near the trail where I can get off the trail and go straight to the hotel. She's like, okay. So she called me back and said, I found you one, but it's like 2 miles from the trail, but they say there are no Uber, but you can call people and they'll pick you up. Where I was like, okay, I have a place. I got off the trail. As soon as I walked out of the trail on this busy road, there was a BP station. I walked in there, got me a Gatorade, walked up to the counter, was paying for the Gatorade, and looked across the street. It was like, I forget the name of the hotel, but whatever the name of the hotel was, she told me I was staying at, it was supposedly 2 miles from the trail. I look over, and there's this, Hyatt place or whatever it's called. That's not what it was, but Spark by Hilton or something. And I look, and there's a Spark by Hilton, and I told the lady behind the counter, I was like, is that the only Spark by Hilton? I figured my wife maybe messed up, made me reservations for another one. She said, yep, that's the only one. Dude, I started crying. I was like, she's like, sir, are you okay? I was like, yeah, I'm so happy. She's like, what do you mean? I was like, my wife made me reservation. I thought I still had 2 miles to go to figure out where the hotel was. So I was off the trail for 4 days. Back to your question, how did I do it? It was like 1 mile at a time. There's many times my chant would be like, hey, dude, we only got 1 more mile to go till the next mile.
Yeah.
Or 1 more day to go till the next day. And that kind of kept me going. But that norovirus time in Virginia was probably the hardest I had it, like during the whole trail. I ended up being off the trail for 4 days because I have some condition, GERD, and I can't vomit. So I had these real violent hiccups, and I ulcerated my esophagus. Like I was shitting black. And maybe this is TMI, but like I was shitting black. My wife's like, you need to go to the doctor. So I went to urgent care that was like a quarter mile from the hotel, and the PA was real concerned about me. But then after he did some tests, he's like, yeah, you just ulcerated your esophagus, and so he put me on ulcer medicine and that kind of stuff. And I was back on the trail, and 2 days after that. But that was some of the hardest time. But I just did it by like, hey, mini goals, like we do in training and everything. Just like, hey, and it's a win when you make that goal, right? Like,
yeah, absolutely.
Like, hey, I've done this. All right, now I got to go to the next goal. So
yeah, now that's interesting. That's how it's funny. That's how when I used to do longer races, I would always race to the halfway mark, because if I was getting frustrated or exhausted before the halfway mark, I'd be like, all right, well, I'm halfway to the halfway mark, so I'm already halfway there. Yep. And like, you just finding those small things. Or like I remember when I was a PSI at Mobile Unit 3, and we had to go on these long runs and whatever, and you'd be like, all right, the mobile unit's 3 miles away, but that telephone pole's right there.
That's right.
I just have to make that telephone pole. Yeah,
exactly.
Those small things, and especially when you're sick, man, that's tough, especially being way out there.
That's right. I also set some goals and some ideas during the time. My youngest boy graduated high school, and I made it clear, hey, I'm going to leave the trail for his high school graduation. So that was kind of something I was looking forward to. It wasn't a finish, but it was like, hey, when I get to, May, whatever, I'm going to get off the trail, go home, graduate him, take him deep sea fishing, come back to the trail. So that helped. I did the 4-state challenge, which is you start in West Virginia or Virginia, and you go Virginia, West Virginia. It's really the Maryland challenge because you're barely in Virginia, and West Virginia is not much. Maryland is the bulk of it, and then you go into Pennsylvania. And I had some buddies come and do that with me. So, having those like short-term goals with it, it's kind of like making it through air, right?
Yeah.
Like, making it through whatever in EOD school, you're happy, and you celebrate a little bit, but not much, and then you go to the next one. So that helped a lot as well.
That's cool. On the mileage side, how did you choose how much mileage to do each day? Was it because of the people that had helped plan it out, or did you kind of go by feel, or was it a combination?
So Georgia, North Carolina, and Tennessee, especially after Hurricane Helene, I mean, they're already rugged. They're like straight uphill, very little switchbacks. But after Helene, it was pretty tough. There were places where you were jumping over logs and stuff. But they say, in general, the Appalachian Trail, Georgia, North Carolina, and Tennessee into Virginia is really, really rugged and tough. From Virginia through Maryland and Connecticut, they say through Pennsylvania, but Pennsylvania's really rocky. It's not as bad. And then when you get up to Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine, it's rough again. So on the macro level, you look at it and you're like, all right, I'm probably going to do less miles. Let's say you need to. I think to do the trail in 6 months, you got to average 12 miles a day over the whole 6 months, right? So early on, you're probably doing, and like I said, they throttled us back. We were doing 10 to 14 mile days because we would have probably come out and just done 15, 20, and we would hurt ourselves. And people do that, right? Mm-hmm. But we would use this app far out, and you can look on it, and you go in there, and it's got, you know, where the water sources are, where campsites are, where shelters are, where, you know, resupply points are and stuff. But it also has the profile in there, the ascent, descent. So a lot of times, you know, you're thinking, all right, I'm going to plan. So in the macro level, you say, hey, you're going to have shorter days in the beginning, you know, first 3 states, 400, 500 miles or so, and then the last 500 miles is going to be tough. And in the middle, that's where you can start putting in the 20, 25-mile days. Most through hikers, by that time, their trail legs are good. They have longer days, because if you start in the early spring, your days are longer. You can just go longer. Yep. So it's a combination of all that. We would plan together. Like, we would all come up with, we'd all get our far out and be like, hey, what about this? This looks like a cool campsite, or this place. And, you know, campsite, what makes it cool is if it's got a good water source, first of all. Yeah. And the people that like to stay in shelters, there were some people that would stay in shelters a lot. I didn't like them. That's a whole nother thing. I just didn't like. I had a bad experience during the Smokies. Okay. Smokies was tough because of weather, and it's pretty rugged. But you take all that into consideration, and then you plan. When I first broke away from Sherpa and Greg, which are the guys I hike with the most, I broke away from them because I wanted to start doing longer days, like 20 and 25-mile days. They were still thinking they want to do 18-mile days, but the reason I wanted to do that, I was building up to do the 4-state challenge, and it's about 43 miles, and I was like, I need to do some longer days. Yeah. I needed this I wasn't so much worried about the time it was going to take me to finish, but I was like, I want to put in, and I was going to be off the trail for a week, you know, going home for my kids' graduation. So I used all that into, but as a group, we would all pitch in. We were like, hey, this is an 18-mile day, but check it out. This is where we would be camping out. Yeah, well, have you seen the campsite at 20 miles? And you know, the profile's not so bad the last 6-7 miles. It would be pretty easy, and we would use that all together. Sherpa would say, who's the smartest guy in the room? I love this quote. I'd never heard it. It came from an Army guy, but I think it's good. Who's the smartest guy in the room? The room. I mean, everybody together. And so we would work together with that. But then the time when I was soloing, and my wife, so after I came home for Hampton's graduation, my wife brought me back because I stopped in Waynesboro, which is the beginning of the Shenandoahs. Mm-hmm. And I had the whole Shenandoahs and the northern part of Virginia up to Harper's Ferry, where we did the 4-state challenge to finish. So she brought me up, and I slack packed it, meaning she would drop me off in the morning. I always used my pack because I wanted to be, you know, fit forms, like using your body armor without your plates in it, you know, just you get used to it, right? Yeah. And you carry what you need, you know, you always carry a filter and a rain jacket and toilet paper and your necessities, not just food and water. And I would slap pack. But the thing on slap pack, dude, I would boogie. Yeah. I would go out a lot harder than when I was packing my full pack. Yeah. And some of those days were harder on me because I was fast. I was going as fast as I could. First one thing, my wife was going to meet me at a place, and I wanted to meet her, you know, go out and get something to eat and get a shower and start over the next day. So, does that answer your question? Yeah. One more thing on that, though. There were people on the trail that I met, not so much in our group, maybe because we're all military, that didn't even plan their days.
Really?
I'd be like, hey, where are you going tonight? I don't know. I'll stop when I get tired. And I'd be like, that is something I'm institutionalized. At least come up with a plan, and you can change your plan, and that worked for me. But there's probably some value in that, and like just saying, I'm just going to go into it. But quite honestly, there's miles and miles where there are no places to pitch a tent. Right. So I was like, oh, I don't really like that. But anyway.
Yeah. When it comes to, so I feel like breakfast is easy because you're going to eat that when you wake up and you get ready to go. Dinner or whatever your last meal is, easy because it's probably right before bed. But on the trail, like when you're doing your hike, did you stop for lunch? Did you stop for snacks? Or did you kind of like, how did you do that portion?
Yeah. Whenever I left a resupply, I would always try to buy a sandwich like at a grocery store or something. I'd always carry me an avocado or something like that I wasn't going to tote with me the whole 3 to 5 days I was on the trail. Yeah. That was always nice to have for lunchtime. And plus it doesn't take much prep. The first couple months I was doing like tortillas with chicken salad or tuna or something, but I got tired of that pretty quick. Yeah. I mean, you can make it fun. You can put like crushed up potato chips and hot sauce and stuff in it. It tastes better, but it still gets old, right? Yeah. I tried a variety of things. I didn't like to stop and have to prepare something. I like to do that in the evening.
Yeah.
Breakfast, I hardly prepared anything. I would do protein bars and coffee, instant coffee, and maybe, you know, some fruit or something if I was coming out of a place. But dude, I tell you, especially, and it happened for me down south. I've talked to some other hikers. They were like, oh, I got more trail magic up north, but I got a lot of it in Georgia, North Carolina, Tennessee, and Virginia, but they call it trail magic. I mean, you're coming along, dude, and you walk up and there's an RV like this, and they have grills going, they're frying eggs, cooking burgers, they got Yingling and so forth. So there were times when I'd plan a meal and like, word travels on the trail. But like, hey, dude, there's trail magic up at mile such and such, and be like, okay, and you're like boogieing to get there for lunch, right?
Yeah.
There's this one church bus that I showed up to, and this family had been doing trail magic for people in their church. It's like, well, we got a bus we don't ever use. They turned it into a trail magic bus.
That's awesome.
They would pull up, you come up in there. They had couches in there. They had sodas, Gatorade. They had beer. They had everything else, right?
Yeah.
And it was pretty cool. So, yeah, I tried a variety of things, but I didn't really like to stop and prepare much for lunch. Early on, there were some times when me and you know, that first week or whatever, me, Dick Wags, and Young Guns, we would stop and do a second breakfast where we'd make we wouldn't even drink coffee in the morning. We'd just get up, eat a power bar, and start hiking. About an hour or two into the hike, we'd find a good view, and we'd stop, make coffee, and have like a second breakfast. That was kind of cool because it was like a break, you know, consciously stop and take a break.
Yeah.
When I slack packed, I would eat on the run.
Yeah.
Because once again, I wanted to get done, and so
that's what I was thinking the answer would be, because it's different than when you're like, I can imagine like those few people that you said, you know, didn't have a plan for the day. They're just, when I'm tired, I'll stop. I can imagine if you have that attitude towards it, probably a lunch with a nice view every day is awesome. Yeah. Because you don't really care.
Yeah.
But I feel like I would probably be the same way, where like, all right, once I get going doing something, even in my backyard, when I'm working on something in the backyard, my wife has to come out 5 times and tell me, okay, you have to stop. It's 5 o'clock in the evening. That's right. You started today, you know?
Yeah. I will tell you though, Jerron, there was one point where I said, henceforth, I will not pass a body of water that I can swim in without getting in it. And I started every time there was a river that you could swim in or is deep enough to like dunk your head in, I would stop, take all my gear off, and get in the water.
That's awesome.
And a couple of the Army guys would be like, all right, I'll meet you up ahead, and they'd keep going. But there were a few of them that would like, you know, participate in that. And there was a period when I stopped doing that because I was like either slack packing and whatever. But like there were some freaking awesome places to get in the water, especially when it was hot, you know, you're like, ice cold water. And then there were some views like McAfee's Knob where like, dude, you got to stop and just enjoy it, you know? A guy that was stationed with me in Spain, LDO security officer guy, Matt, he met me. He's from Virginia. He met me at McAfee's Knob and brought me some beer and some food, and we had a good time.
That's cool.
So it was pretty cool lunch. But as a general rule, I didn't really plan that, you know, to stop and eat a big lunch or whatever. So
that makes sense. Wildlife. One thing I always wonder about is wildlife, because obviously there's sections where you're hiking alone. There's bears. There's a whole bunch of different things out there, right? And then at night, especially if you're not camping near a bunch of other people, was there any interesting experiences with wildlife?
Yeah. So first of all, on the AT, really, I mean, it's very minimal. Really? I mean, people are like, oh, worry about the bear. Black bear, if you don't pester them, you don't get through between mama and the cubs, or you don't pester them, you don't do stupid stuff like sleeping with food that's open. Yeah. They're scared of you. And I saw one black bear, and once again, I didn't even get my phone out to take his picture quick enough, and he was huffing and taking off through the wood. Snakes, though, I mean, there are rattlesnakes. Like one of the guys in the cohort behind me, he's gotten some awesome. His name's Kevin Binkley. You can look him up on Facebook. He's got some of the best. I told him he needs to get a job with National Geographic. He's got some of the best video. He's got a video of a freaking nest of rattlesnakes. There's like 6 or 7 rattlesnakes on this cliff in Pennsylvania. He's got the coolest video back to the bear. He's walking down the trail and he pulls out his phone. He's videoing these 2 cubs. He's like, oh, there's 2 cubs up the tree. He's like, I wonder where mommy is. And he's like, oh, there she is. And he turns like 100 feet down the trail. She's on the other side of the trail.
Yeah.
And he's like, ooh, I almost messed up. So he starts backing off. About that time, the cubs come down the tree, run down the trail. Mama runs behind them. He's like, ooh, I almost messed. I mean, you can't script that. Like, I saw one moose in Maine, and it was early in the morning, and by the time I got my phone out to take his picture, it was a cow. Actually, she was gone.
Yeah.
And but he's got this picture of this moose. It's like wandering in the woods. Like how do you do that, dude?
Yeah.
I mean, anyway. But I saw porcupine. I saw some snakes. I never ran into a rattlesnake. There were guys that say they were walking along or taking a break, and they'd look, and there's a rattlesnake right on the trail. You're on a rock or something.
Yeah.
I never had that, which means maybe they were there and I just didn't see them. I don't know. I didn't have really. I mean, I would think like the CDT and all is a little more hairy with, when you're getting up in grizzly country. I would be more concerned about that, or brown bear. But typically black bear, they're so scared of us. Deer, though, you're walking by and deer are standing right next on the trail. Like, I literally could reach out and pet the deer. And they're just looking at you. You can tell they know they're not being hunted,
yeah.
right? But I didn't really have any. There was in New Hampshire in the Whites, there was one campsite that had, and then there were signs everywhere, be careful, a lot of bear activity at this one campsite. And I figured it's just some people that saw some bear or whatever. And I met the guy, though, like my last week hiking in the 100-mile wilderness. I met the guy. He's like, somebody said, hey, is that the backpack you had when the bear stole it? And I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, yeah, I was the guy that the reason they put all those signs up. And he was in his tent, and a bear, he said he heard some commotion, and he asked his neighbor, hey, is that you? And he's like, no. And he opened up his tent, and there's a black bear right outside his tent. He said the black bear grabbed his backpack, which I always brought my backpack in my tent.
Yeah.
I would put my food in a bear box or hang it, There was times when I kept my food in my tent, different places, right? Mm-hmm. But not in bear country, in New Jersey and North Carolina and so forth. I didn't. But, I mean, you're always risking that. But anyway, this bear grabbed his backpack, took off down the woods, and he and the caretaker of the campsite chased it and ended up finding his backpack. He didn't have any food in it, but the bear took his backpack. So you hear those stories, but like I didn't have any experience with that. Yeah. So yeah, it wasn't aggressive. It was looking for food, right?
He's curious.
And he freaked out when he came out of the tent. Took off. So anyway, yeah,
that's funny. What was your favorite section of the trail?
I would say by far Maine.
Yeah.
But New Hampshire was a close second, dude. New Hampshire was beautiful, the Whites. You hear all along the trail, oh, wait till you get the Whites. It's so tough. And it is more challenging. I mean, your mileage gets reduced, but it's beautiful. And the weather most of the time is cool. Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and New York was the hardest for me. Yeah. Because it was rocky, it was hot, it was buggy. It was somewhat hilly enough to make it suck. But when you get into New Hampshire, it's mountains, right? Yeah. The White Mountains. Vermont's the Green Mountains, and it's pretty. You got some steeper mountains, but it's a lot of you get some really good views. But when you get in the White Mountains, it is unbelievable. That's where you go through the Presidentials, Mount Washington, and then in Maine was just magical, dude. It was awesome. So I would say, to answer your question, I would go back and just hike New Hampshire and Maine again, or just do the 100-mile wilderness, which the last 100 miles before you get to Katahdin is called the 100-mile wilderness. Used to be very few people could get out there, but there's dirt roads and people resupply and stuff out there. Okay. But typically you take what you need for that 5 to 7 days to get through the 100-mile wilderness, and then you summit Katahdin. Man, I loved it. It was awesome. You get some really good views. There's a lot of rivers, a lot of lake. We had some nights where we were camping on a beach on a lake.
That's cool.
And it was just, nice cool in the evening. I don't mind it hot in the day, but when it's hot at night, Pennsylvania, dude, I was sweating in my tent, dehydrated. You get to a water source on far out, it says there's water, and you get there and it's dry. And
we actually went to New Hampshire for the first time. I'd never been past New York, like, east was. Right. We went to New Hampshire in July this year for the first time. And man, this was before I found out that, or was it July? It was June. It was in June. Before I found out I was going to dive school. And I was like, man, I'm going to be, re-enlisting, getting this ERB. That's going to be a down on a place in New Hampshire. Like, New Hampshire is beautiful. I'm excited now with you talking about Maine, though. I'm excited to go just a little bit further and see that. Cause
Maine is very remote, though. It's spread out,
That's
right?
What I love.
I loved it. I loved it, dude. But it's there's just so much out there, and wildlife. That's where I saw a moose. It was magical, dude. I loved it. And then I also had a buddy of mine from the Navy that I've known for 25 years, over 25 years. And then my brother-in-law, my wife's younger brother, came and hiked the 100-mile wilderness with me.
Nice.
And then another EOD officer who's from Maine. He was the training officer when I was XO at dive school. He's from Maine. He came up and did the summit at Katahdin. He'd never summited Katahdin, and he came and did that.
That's cool.
And that was cool. So, yeah.
That's awesome. Man, with everything that you did on the trail and the purpose behind it being that, like, helping you to transition from one thing to another, is there a like summary of the experience that now that you've done it? Because, I mean, you just completed it, right? Like, how long?
August 26th. Okay. Today is, September 4th?
Yeah.
So, a week or so ago.
So, it maybe hasn't even been enough time to really, process that. But in the time that you've had, is there, like, a processing that you've done? Or are you still kind of, like, not even at that phase yet?
Yeah, I'm still processing it. Once again, I've just shaved my beard. Still have this ridiculous mustache, but
I think it
whatever,
looks
dude. Yeah, that's right. And then so I'm still kind of processing it. Ren and I don't even know where we're going next. Our lease is up in early November. We don't even know where we're going next. But you know what? I'm good with it, dude.
That's cool.
Like, it's so freeing, man. It's like, we're used to planning all our moves and stuff. I mean, I was telling my wife today, I was like, I guess we're going to have to do a do-it-yourself move, because I think it's kind of too late if we move out in November to, like, set up a move, right? But to answer your question, I am still processing it. But to summarize it, I would say I think is more important than us doing our indoctrination, as you called it, I call it institutionalization, into the service, into the Navy, into our community. I think the out processing and out, the decompression is more important.
Yeah. Because
we got the rest of our lives to deal with, right? Whatever that's going to be. And maybe that's someone just takes a couple months off and they, write their memoirs. Or maybe someone goes on a fishing trip up in Alaska and has some time to think about it. Or retreat with your spouse or your, whatever. I think there's intentional, there should be time that's intentionally set aside for your transition. I don't see how people can go from, there's a lot of security in going from retirement to the job on Monday, retirement on Friday, going to a job on Monday. Yeah. Right. There's some security there, but I think what you gain in security, if you've done everything right up to that point, or even not even 100% right, but right enough, you're not going to starve if you retire.
Right.
You might have to seriously reduce your living, the way you live, but you're not going to starve. But there's some value in, like, having a period where you just decompress and, like, transition.
Yeah.
And And I'm hoping, I kind of think the VA, other organizations, they see the value in that. And I would encourage anybody that's getting out, even, after 6 years or retiring after 20, to be intentional and think of something, hey, you've always wanted to do, and they there's value in that. So my summary is like, that Appalachian Trail was, and by the way, I summited on August 26th, which was the anniversary of when I came in the Navy in 1988. So
that's awesome.
That was special, and it worked out that way. Like literally worked out that way. So it was pretty cool to have that like culmination of finishing up. So
yeah, I like I said, I heard your name a lot, heard stories about you a lot, and I really appreciate you coming in and sharing this, because I agree with you. I think we had talked before. What do we want to? What do you want to like share on this podcast? And it was really the transition portion.
That's
getting the Warrior Expeditions, that name out there, so that that's an option for people. Because a lot of the organizations and the nonprofits that do this stuff, people just don't know about. It's getting the names out there so that people have that as an option in their repertoire coming out. And then, since I've seen you doing this is one of those things that, like you said, maybe somebody doesn't have the financial security to do a 6 month or a year time, right? But having this podcast and coming on and dedicating this podcast, and not just all the things you've done in your career, maybe we can do that another time, but doing this, maybe this is like, hey, if you're 2 years out, if you're 5 years out from retiring, maybe start throwing a little bit into a savings account so that you have that option. Because man, like just sitting here talking to you, like I'm pumped. Like,
nice.
Awesome. I'm excited. Like, I'm about to re-enlist for 5 more years. Maybe I'll change that. No, but I'm excited for whenever I decide to get out to do something like this, to have that intentional separation. Because I can see, I could see just in you the calmness. And I've said, I didn't know you before this, but there's a calmness mixed with excitement for whatever's next.
That's right.
And one of the things that I have seen on this podcast and talked to guys that have been on here is a couple things that I've learned, or kind of observed, I guess is probably a better thing. Having a retirement ceremony, even if it's not everybody in whites and super official, having a retirement ceremony is actually an important thing, because there's been multiple guys that have talked about, they didn't have anything, and as they're getting in their car, it's like this overwhelming realization, like that phase is done, and there was nothing to separate. It was just, I ended this job and now I'm doing what? And I think this is another one of those things that can help that transition.
Sure.
Where you're doing something intentional and you're putting your focus on that to move on to the next thing.
Absolutely.
Not forget about the previous.
That's right.
But just process it to be able to move on.
Focus on it.
Yeah. I really appreciate you coming out. Do you have anything that you would like to leave as like a final thing for anybody listening?
Well, I mean, I really appreciate what you're doing, dude. I think this is, I think your podcast, it's first of all, it's fun to listen to, especially guys that you've known in the past or knew a little bit, and hear them talk, tell stories. We told a few sea stories. I think that's fun.
Yeah.
But I mean, quite honestly, and back to the people, man, we got such solid people, and we have warts, we have problems. We're not perfect, but we're still the best, right? And I think whoever hears this, I hope they will encourage folks that are transitioning out, 6 years, retirement, whatever, to just do something to help them in the long run. And I think there's huge value in that. And I think we care about each other. I mean, I've lost buddies, right? I've lost too many buddies. And quite honestly, most of them was after they got out of the military. And they took their own life. And it's like, first of all, I don't see that as an option. But could that happen to me easy as it could to anybody else? It absolutely could. And I think by doing something intentionally where you have this purpose-driven life in the military and the EOD, and you're doing all this stuff, and then you just cut and you're not doing anything, it's understandable why people lose hope, right? And I think so to answer your question, what I'd like to leave with is like, anybody, reach out to me, dude. Jerron will have my contact information. Reach out to me. I'll first of all, I'll talk to you. I'll listen to you, whatever. If that's all you want, then that's it. But if you're interested in doing something like this, I'll give you what I know, and I will help you, guide you in the right direction. And it would be cool, like, you know, especially if somebody else does the Warrior Expedition hikes, I'm gonna come hike with you some, right? And but I think, you know, first of all, thanks for what you're doing, because you're getting the word out about a lot of different things in our community, within our great community. But please, if anybody out there wants to talk more about this or talk about anything in transition, please hit me up, and I'm here for you. So
awesome.
Who you are, brother?
Yeah. Well, again, I appreciate you coming out, and for everybody listening, sorry it's been 3 months. We should be a little more consistent from now on.
Who you are?
Appreciate you.
Yep. Who you are?
Thank you for listening to the Echo Oscar Delta podcast, where we talk to Navy EOD techs and hear the stories that they want to share.